when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard Jesus is making and baptizing more disciples than John, although it was not Jesus himself but his disciples who baptized, Jesus left Judea and started back to Galilee. But he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a Samaritan city called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. And Jesus, tired out by his journey, was sitting by the well. It was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." His disciples had gone to the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask a drink of me, a woman of Samaria?" Jews did not share things in common with Samaritans. Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you have no bucket. The well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us the well, and with his sons and his flock drank from it?" Jesus said to her, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but those who drink of the water that I will give, they will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of water, gushing up to eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, so that I may never be thirsty or have to keep coming here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, call your husband and come back." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you have now is not your husband. What you have said is true." The woman said to him, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you say that the place where people must worship is in Jerusalem." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will worship the Father, neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But the hour is coming and is now here when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father seeks such as these to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." The woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, who is called Christ. When he comes, he will proclaim all things to us." And Jesus said to her, "I am he, the one who is speaking to you." Just then his disciples came. They were astonished that he was speaking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you want?" or "Why are you speaking with her?" Then the woman left her water jar and went back to the city. She said to the people, "Come and see a man who has told me everything I've ever done. He cannot be the Messiah, can he?" They left the city and were on their way to him. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Wells are holy places in the Bible. We have the story of Hagar discovering that well. She had been tossed out of her home. She was lost and forsaken, but God knew where she was, answered her cries, revealed to her the place of a well so that she could get water for her and her son. Wells are holy places in the Bible. We have another setting today of a holy conversation at a well. It's also one of the longest conversations Jesus has. I want to show you a picture. This is a sculpture at Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana. It is called Christ and the Samaritan Woman. The artist is Ivan Mitrovic. He was born in Croatia. He created this in 1957, but it was installed at Notre Dame in 1985. Christ and the Samaritan woman. So without me talking, I want you to just look at it for a couple of seconds and see what you see. So one of the big things I notice in this piece of art is the opposites that are going on. So you have Christ and the Samaritan woman on opposite sides of the well. Their postures are opposite. Jesus is sitting. His hand is up. His face is up. The Samaritan woman is looking downward. She's clutching her water jar. She is much more inward. And then because we heard the gospel story, we know some other opposites that the gospel story made very clear. You have a man and a woman talking. For us, that is no big deal these days. Back then, big deal. And then there's the religious difference. Jesus is a Jew. They are in Samaria, so he's talking to a Samaritan woman. Now, even though they both worship one God, and they both claim their religious ancestry goes back to ancient Israel, they have very different practices and they don't like each other very much. There's lots of hostility between Jews and Samaritans. Here's their two biggest differences. One is what is considered Holy Scriptures. The Samaritans believed in the first 5 books of the Bible as the only Holy Scriptures. So that's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Only those. The Jews would have those and include all other writings that we know as the Old Testament. So they had differences there. And then also on where you should worship. The Samaritans would worship in that nearby mountain called Mount Gerizim. Where would the Jews say you can only worship? In Jerusalem at the temple. Big, big differences for them. Lots of hostility. They don't get along. And here they are, having a conversation at a well. So with even all these opposing factors, they still seem connected. Why? In the art piece, what draws your eye to show that they're connected? The well. The well. It physically connects them. Imagine how different the art piece would be if Jesus was standing away from it. Or how different it would be if the woman at the well was standing away from it. But no, this is intentional. They are connected by the circle of the well wall. Now their conversation is very long. Again, I let you sit for it. They talk about many things. It begins with Jesus being thirsty. It ends with her spiritual thirst being quenched, met by grace, that living water that Jesus gives by gently acknowledging the brokenness of her life and still giving her the inside scoop to who he really is. She's the first person who hears him say he's the Messiah. And this is one such Messiah who will include even broken Samaritan women into the fold. Acceptance, inclusion, belonging, recognition, all of it the living water of grace that transforms her. I think that connection that we see is that living water of grace that makes the connection, that bottomless well of living water. That is what connects them. And I love how he is sitting. He is parked. He is in no hurry. He will sit as long as it takes for her to drink in as much living water as she needs. So for you and me too, absolutely, Jesus meets us at the well. And he parks himself there. He is attentive. He is in no hurry. He's ready to sit with us as we acknowledge what's broken in us, ready to open the floodgates of living water to make that connection of grace. And from our own vantage point, it may sometimes seem like the connection with Jesus is lost or it's strained. We're either feeling too broken or we're too wrapped up in the brokenness of this world to believe that the guy without a bucket can actually get us the living water we need. But if we see from another angle like we get to do here, back a few steps, you can see that the connection is actually always there. Grace is actually always flowing from Jesus to us. Living water is always connecting. And maybe there's more to it than just our personal connection to Jesus. As a Christian community, as the church, we gather around the same well of living water. And might that well of living water be what we need to have our own encounters with those with whom we might feel opposite with on paper? Even when there's opposing views within us, within our congregation, we can step back and still see we're connected by the living water through Christ. Grace is actually always flowing. And that means what it meant for Christ and the Samaritan woman, that the differences on paper are no match for the power of what connects us and keeps us connected. Grace is actually always flowing. And maybe there's more to it still. Perhaps you've heard these words to describe our country right now. Polarized, divided, echo chambers. Echo chambers meaning we talk to others who think like we do. We get our news from sources that think like we do. And see if you can feel the difference in the room when I say things like Black Lives Matter, #MeToo, law and order, deferred action for childhood arrivals, lock her up, pro-life, Second Amendment. Anyone else feeling really uncomfortable? So fellow Christians, what is our role in our country right now? Now there's lots of roles. But might one be to continue living out this story, where differences and divisions and polarizations on paper are no match for what still connects us? That grace is actually always flowing. But just like Christ and the Samaritan woman, differences are worthy of conversation. Remember, they were really long ones. Differences where we park ourselves. We sit down. We stay attentive. We keep asking questions. As Christians stand on the power of grace, can we model what we learned from Christ and the Samaritan woman and stay in the conversation until there's understanding, not necessarily agreement, but can we stay in the conversation until there's understanding? I want to end with the story of how the sculpture garden was used. In November of 2016, an interfaith prayer service for respect and solidarity was held right by this sculpture here at Notre Dame. You can't see the sculpture in this picture. Where all the lights are, that's where the speaker is, and then you can see the crowd in front of him. The speaker is Reverend John Jenkins. He's the president of Notre Dame. You can read his full remarks where else on the internet. But here is an excerpt of what he said that day. Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, says Jesus. But those who drink of the water that I will give them will never be thirsty. The water that I will give will become in them a spring of water gushing up to eternal life. In Matrozovic sculpture before us, the Samaritan woman and Jesus speak over the well's pool of water. It is perhaps in the very exchange, in reaching with compassion and understanding across what divides a Jew and a Samaritan, a woman and a man, that the ordinary water becomes something else. A spring of water gushing up to new possibilities, new hope, and to quenching a deeper thirst, indeed welling up to eternal life. We have come through an election cycle that has revealed and perhaps deepened divisions in our country and in this community as well. In recent days, I have received letters and emails from people on both sides of this election that express anger, uncertainty, bitterness, and fear. It is a troubling time. We would do well to reflect on this reading and the sculpture in these days. If we allow our differences to rend the fabric of this community, our university will become an arid, thirsty place. But if we reach across to engage one another, to give or receive some water, healthy plants can grow. His whole remarks are really worth reading. Again, that's Reverend John Jenkins from the University of Notre Dame. Grace is actually always flowing. Living water gushes between divisions, and the divisions will never overcome.